They didn't come in and ask 20 questions. And I got to tell you, if you're doing that, that's so yesterday, that's not working anymore. What these people would come in and do is they would start out with something called a warmer. In the first 2 minutes, they would say, I know your business. I'm proving to you, I know your business. And then they would do this thing called a reframe where they would pivot and say, now here's something you don't know that I know. Here's a very deep insight. Here's some really provocative information. It's called a reframe. And it would get a reaction out of the person across the table. The reaction that they would get is, huh, tell me more. I've never heard this before. Where did you get this? Say that again. I've never heard that. But what? And then they would do something called rational drowning. That's where you back it up. And you answer that question. You say, well, here's the data behind that. Here's what we know, and here's how we know that. Then they would do something really in particular. They knew their customers so well that they understood the frustrations of the customer, and they could articulate those frustrations in first person. It's really interesting when you see it done. They use the word I'm so frustrated. And then they would pivot and they would say, well, what if you could? What if you didn't have to? What if it was possible? And then out would come the solution. And this is critical that you understand this. If you have a Me Too product, if you're selling a commodity, you don't need this. You need to get a low price and you need to get a contract in place because you're just a Me Too product. And the product will come out very early in the sequence and the rest of the time will be spent features and benefit selling. But if you have a truly innovative product, it should not come out until the end of this process, okay? Now, how do we deliver that message? This is what's changing in 2023. If a physician's gonna talk about a new product and they're on the podium, they're gonna have a clicker in their hand and they're gonna be delivering information with some type of a visual aid, right? You'd never get on that stage without some kind of a PowerPoint or some kind of presentation. People stopped listening to hour-and-a-half long sermons a long time ago. The Lincoln-Douglas debate was a 4-hour event and people used to love it, but we're not there anymore. We've got customers who don't even read much in terms of books, right? There used to be a morning newspaper and an evening newspaper, but that's not where we're at. Right now, everything's TV and movies. So question for you, show your fingers. How many seconds is the average image actually on the screen right now? How many seconds? Hold your fingers up. 1 second, it's not that bad. 5 seconds, 5 seconds. Actually, on average, it's 7 seconds, right? And so our customers are being trained to only really pay attention for these short cutaway attention span things. So listen, your tools going to market had better be built a certain way or your team is going to hate you. And that whole meeting where you roll it out to your team, like, yeah, they're not going to be excited. This is what they fear. If you give me that, 1, it takes too much time. 2, I'm not used to doing that. And 3, what you're going to find out really quickly is your team doesn't know how to teach. Hear me clearly. Nobody wants to be sold, but everybody loves to be taught. If you teach me valuable information and you make me better at my job, I love you. And I'll let you keep coming back and you can keep teaching me things. And so the question you need to write down right now is, what can I teach my customers? What's something that my clinical research, my innovation is going to help them know and appreciate that they don't already know? Because listen, if you're going to change human behavior, if you're going to get me to change what I'm doing, you better teach me something I don't already know. Or I have no motivation to do what you're telling me to do. Now, as you teach me, much like I'm teaching you, you need to use a technique that's in my book. It's called point of the slide. And you need to teach your salespeople that they got to be sticking and moving. Okay, the golden rule with PowerPoint right now in 2023 is 1 minute or less per slide, and I'll let you show me 1,000 slides. But 1 minute or more, and after 3 slides, I'm looking at my watch saying, how much longer is this going to take? You can only make 3 points on a slide. And here's what I mean by that. Your legal department will insist that you put a whole bunch of information on a slide, and we will not read it, and we will not use it. We're only going to make 3 points. But here's the thing. You're going to hire super talented individuals that have their own style, and that's great. You don't want to change their style, but you need one team message And you need everybody making the same point on those slides so that later when you do your aided recall, you have strong, sticky messages that the customer is using. So let me give an example of what this looks like. You're saying, okay, help me understand this. What are you talking about? This is the actual presentation that the Latera team gave that got those 12 messages above 60%. This is only going to take like 3 minutes, maybe even less. Watch this. In the next 10 minutes, I'm going to introduce Latera to you. If you like what you hear, I'll go ahead and take the next 10 minutes to get it in your hands and train you briefly on this. And I want to take the last 10 minutes to get you ready for a conversation with your patient in the exam room. This is going to change everything. You're going to get new questions and you're going to have to explain new information. I just want to make sure you're ready for that. Now listen, here's what we know. As an ear, nose, and throat surgeon, the number one thing walking in the door is nasal obstruction. We know that you're already explaining the Bernoulli principle and Passai's law. You're telling your patients, if I can just get you a little more diameter in your nostril, I can dramatically improve the airflow in your nose. Well, the sidewall is the thing we're talking about today. Everybody's done septoplasties and turbinate reductions, but we were looking for papers to see if anybody had actually looked at the sidewall and used this thing called a positive caudal maneuver to diagnose sidewall problems. Well, here's what we found. There was only one paper. And this guy looked at 63 patients and found that if they had sidewall collapse, they were 20% sicker and 24% less responsive to any medications or treatments. So we had to see if there was actually a market for this product. So here's what we did. We went to 50 otolaryngologists and we said, hey, screen the next 50 patients that walk in the door. Look at this. 73% of the patients who walked in the door have the sidewall problem. Did you know that? No, I didn't know that. Yeah. So here's the deal. Dr. Gonzalez is the founder. He's an ear, nose, and throat surgeon. He said, listen, I stick the scope up in the nose every day. I see these patients. I see the sidewall collapse, but it's so frustrating. For these patients, there's nothing I can do. My only options are to refer this patient out to a facial plastic surgeon who's going to do this really gnarly deglove the nose procedure. It's terrible. Or I'm going to send these patients out to a pharmacist to get a breathe right strip. But in either instance, there's nothing I can do. Well, what if you could?
Success requires insights. Elite execution requires training. Go to www.exsalesconsulting.com/special offers.